All right. So we are going to talk today about marketing before, during, and after COVID. Um, I've been doing quite a few webinars over the last week or so. So if people don't have specific questions that they want to ask, I will definitely pull some information in from uh, those webinars and some questions that were asked on there because I'm sure that they are shared questions for everyone. So we shall see. Um, so let's see. Give people a little bit of time to see if they want to come on over. Slack so it's not beeping at me. Okay. Couple people in. So, all right. Well, we'll get started and hopefully some other folks will join us a little bit later. Um, so one of the analogies that I've been using to talk a little bit about just at least how I personally felt when we learned about the COVID stuff and kind of saw it coming was an analogy of just before I felt like I was sitting on a beach, relaxing, life was good. And all of a sudden I looked up from my book and there was a huge tidal wave just headed toward shore. And you just have that moment of, ah, and not really knowing whether to run, hide, what to do, and I think what I really want people to be thinking about is the how are we going to kind of ride this wave out of this? So knowing that there's all this energy and things that we can't control coming toward us, we can only control what we can do. And so, to me, the question becomes how do we grab a surfboard and use this energy to kind of ride a wave past it? Because I think that the other thing that just I'm, trying to talk to people about is this will end. There will be another side of this. So you can't be spending all of your energy just thinking about right this second and not having some path or preparation for the future. So that's a lot about what we're going to be talking about. And I think um, that kind of tidal wave analogy works well too, because I think people's instincts in that moment are a little bit different. That some people are going to freeze, some people are just going to go dark and hunker down, some people are going to just start working on a bunch of things just to keep busy. Some people will just opt out and be like, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. This is crazy. But there's very few people who will naturally reach out at times like this. So the communication aspect, the marketing aspect, the brand aspect becomes really something that we do have to plan for and work at, that we can't just assume that it's going to come naturally to us. Um, and so I think that that's, again, becomes both a challenge and an opportunity where, knowing that some companies are going to be going dark right now and who are not going to be making a plan for the future, how could we actually use it as a competitive advantage? Um, so I'm going to just talk a little bit about how I'm thinking about it. And if people have questions, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat and I will answer them as we go. This is really, again, it's office hours, it's your time. So let me know what you want to know. But I think one of the easiest ways to be successful right now and to be successful kind of coming out of this COVID crisis is really through empathy, to really be thinking about your target customers and not just like, what can I sell them, but you need to be able to picture them in your head and be thinking about, what are they feeling? What are they experiencing? How can I really get myself to not just be thinking about this from my point of view of what do I want to say to them or what do I want to make them do, but a question about, how can I really understand what they are feeling right now so that my response can be appropriate? And also, how has my brand fit into their life before this happened? And so what might they expect from me right now? That not all brands are going to be able to respond in the same way. So it's not a one size fits all. It becomes really taking a framework of empathy, of really truly understanding your target customer and using that to apply that to the situation. So if you don't know your target customer right now, then that really points to a much deeper issue that, maybe this is an opportunity to help you deal with that, it's a great time to just be reaching out to people and asking, how's business? How are you personally? How are you feeling? What do you expect from us? Is there anything we can be doing better for you? That your whole company should really be in that mindset of really trying to do some outreach and speak to customers and trying to gather that information. And if you can either hear from them directly or if you know them well enough to be able to kind of imagine what they're thinking and feeling, that empathy is going to be your superpower because there's going to be, and I've already seen it. I've gotten the sales pitches myself of people either totally ignoring that this is happening and just selling business as usual, or doing some kind of weird COVID pitch. Like one of the ones I shared with our team was a copier printer company who was selling some kind of like um, COVID work from home package deal on like a $1,500 printer. And I'm sorry, but there's nobody sitting around going, oh, I wish I had a really good deal on a printer right now. But instead of thinking about like, oh, maybe people, are running out of supplies for their printer at home. I know, anybody who's got kids at home, you're printing out a ton of worksheets. Maybe that would be an opportunity for them. But instead, they just kind of like, did what they would normally do, create a bundle and then promote the bundle. And I think anybody who's just acting like business as usual is both making a mistake, they're harming relationships and brand equity now, and they're also really missing an opportunity because when this does rebound, there are going to be people looking to buy, and the companies that stayed top of mind and acted in a way that was brand appropriate are going to be the ones that are going to really see the benefit of that. But I do think that one of the keys is that it shouldn't, what I'm not saying is that you should ignore your operations and start to just deal with the marketing stuff now. What I was saying in a webinar earlier last week was that you, in order to surf, you need a surfboard. So you obviously have to make sure that your operations are shored up. You need to make sure that kind of like the company is sound and safe. And until you do that, then you're not going to be able to communicate. So take care of that first. And then as soon as you do, the key is going to be to not go quiet, and then to not just talk for talking's sake, because I know I was really emphasizing communication. And one of the questions that I got was like, hey, I'm inundated by communication right now. I've got so much information being thrown at me. I'm getting so many emails. I'm afraid that my brand is going to add to that noise and just frustrate people. And so again, I think like, that about yourself. Is that what your customers are feeling too? Are they also inundated with information? If so, maybe the way you can be most of service to them is to be thinking about another channel to reach them that's not so crowded. Or maybe it's just by being quiet and listening to them instead of talking. Or maybe it's by not saying anything or giving them, some levity, or, acting with a sense of humor, or just talking about something that's non-COVID related. I feel like that there's that piece too, if people are just getting to the point of saturation with this. And so sometimes you just want, like, just give me anything that's not related to this right now. Um, we also, with, you know, being a relationship business ourselves, and I'm sure a lot of other companies are, it also means, knowing that people are inundated with email, we're picking up the phone a lot more than we might usually, or doing more um, Zoom or Google Hangout chats with our clients than we would normally, and, really emphasizing that human connection. So that's obviously really important. Um, and then I think also just preparing to come out of this, how can you use that same imagination? One of the exercises that we did with one of our business advisors and our team internally, so thanks and shout out to Michael Van. Um, he had us go through an exercise where we're really talking about what will our customers be thinking and experiencing. What are they thinking and experiencing right now? What will be their experience, like, the day that social distancing rules are relaxed? What will that moment be like for them? What will life be like for them 30 days later? What will be like 90 days later, a year later? And just going through that thought experiment, it helped us not only, find things that we need to do in our own operations to be prepared for that, but it also really helped us craft our marketing plan and our sales plan for the future. And then, and doing the same thing for our clients and for their customers. What will their customers be thinking and feeling at this time? So that we can kind of bring that sense of empathy to our recommendations for them. And I think that the smartest marketers in all this and the smartest companies in all of this are going to understand the reality that it will not be business as usual, that people's behaviors are going to change. And how do we really accept that that change is going to happen, and then also really be prepared for it and use that to our advantage? There need to, adapt the way brands are communicating, adapt the channels that they're using, adapt how budgets are being allocated. um, how we promote, how we do outreach is not going to be the same, 60 days, 90 days, a year out from this. And if you can both anticipate that and make a plan for it, and also, be taking in real-time data from multiple sources and making some on the fly decisions as all this evolves, you're going to be in a much better situation. Um, so I think that, with all of that, knowing that that behavior change is going to happen also just underscores that this really is an opportunity. When the stock market was crashing, I got a message from financial advisor just saying, remember, this is the opportunity. We need in the stock market those dips and those climbs in order to make money. And similarly with, building brands and running a business, you kind of need these economic ups and downs to weed out competition, to be able to open up new opportunity and blue sky. If everybody just keeps getting, bigger and bigger, that eventually there's not as much room. So I think, again, to see this as an opportunity is really important. Keep that headset, and it will just help you make decisions differently than you would otherwise. Um, Tyler in our office shared this great quote that I have to read because I have memorized it, but it's basically, I was using the tidal wave analogy. This one uses a racetrack analogy. So think of a recession as a sharp curve on an auto racetrack. The best place to pass competitors, but requiring more skill than straightaways. The best drivers apply the brakes just ahead of the curve. They take out excess costs. They turn hard toward the apex of the curve. They identify the short list of projects that will form the next business model, and then accelerate hard out of the curve. They spend and hire before markets have rebounded. I think it's just such a great analogy because it does give you that headset of yes, like apply those brakes, get things in order, make the cuts you need to, don't avoid them. But at the same time, make sure that you're thinking about as you're entering that curve, you're not, you've already taken care of business. So now it's an opportunity to kind of develop those short term tools that are going to help you get through it. And then be ready for when you hit that straightaway that you can just accelerate and that you are investing in new markets. One of the questions I got last week was somebody who was saying, just before this happened, we had just launched some exploration into a potential new market for us. And should we right now just concentrate on our current business and our current clients and ignore that new market that was kind of starting to show promise but that isn't fully developed yet? And my argument would be that if that market is still viable, coming out of this, that the crisis itself didn't change the playing field in that way, then now's the perfect time to just keep going and to really continue to invest in new markets and develop them so that again you have opportunity coming out of this versus just trying to kind of keep the lights on. um, and then the other question I was getting was kind of like how much should I be spending right now? And in my mind, the question is not really how much should I be spending, but it becomes how should I be spending my money? And also how visible should I be? That in my mind, it's not so much how that obviously for like a large company, you might be able to weather the storm and have cash reserves that you can hit that straight away and throw money at it. I think that the difference is for small businesses, that's not going to be the reality. That coming out of this, we're not going to have huge cash reserves. And so, how do we use our strength, which is that entrepreneurial spirit and doing big things with really strict constraints? How do we get the most out of our dollars? And how do we really maintain or increase our level of visibility and the effectiveness of what we're doing? And again, I do think that a lot of that goes back to really deeply, deeply understanding your customer and deeply understanding their behavior and their needs and how you fit in with that. Um, and then on the other side of it, I think that it also means about thinking about marketing and brand as not just kind of like your outbound communications, but really be thinking about brand as something much more global in your marketing. I saw this. Let's see, saw this cartoon that I thought was awesome. I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, it's going to be backwards. Shoot. But anyway, you can see like the in case of emergency, great break glass, and the person saying all that's in here is a memo to cut our marketing budget. But it's so accurate. Like I think when people hit these phases of the business, you're just looking to cut costs. So marketing feels like an extra cost that we can't afford right now, so we're going to cut it. I think that in terms of how much you spend, you know what's right for your business and you know what you can afford. I think the key is to not look at, oh, we're going to cut the marketing budget and we're going to go dark. Instead, it's no, how do we keep our visibility out here? And then also, how do we think about marketing as something that really is about how do we develop products? How do we provide services? What is our customer service like and customer experience like? How are we pricing things? How are we making them available? All of those things are part of your brand and part of your marketing. The guy who drew that cartoon, Tom Fishburne, he's the marketunist. And if you're a marketing nerd, his cartoon's very hilarious. But he was talking a bit about how he was reminded at one point that they talk about the 4 Ps of marketing when you're in school and taking courses on it, or you're in business school, that it's promotion, product, placement, and price. And so promotion is just one small aspect of what you're doing. And that's obviously the outbound communications. It's about staying visible, but the product is a piece of the marketing mix. What are you actually offering? How is it created? How does it meet the needs of your customer base? Um, Placement, how are they finding it and how are you getting it to them? How are you pricing it? That you need to really be thinking about that as like, how do I maximize availability to those customers? And also, how do I maximize profitability for my company? So if it's not priced correctly or it's not available, it can't get to them, or it's not meeting an evolving need, then you're just not really, going to be effective. Um, and Fishburne also talks about how when he was introduced to marketing and branding, and particularly brand management, it was, kind of part of his orientation was that marketing equals general management. That it's really a much more holistic. Like, you should be thinking about your marketing budget and the budget to support a brand as its own little mini P&L within a company. So it really needs to have us have that like outlook and headset to understand those things as being, it's ultimately the entire business. It's really that global. Um, and and I think that particularly for small businesses, in the same way that, startups have to function that way, I think small businesses in recessions just need to figure out how to get marketing and sales and operations to collaborate during this time, and to be thinking together about how they're going to find new ways to meet customer need. And that if you can do that really successfully, then that's going to be a way to really come out of this strong. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but let me know if you do have anything. If not, I think those are kind of like the headsets that I really wanted to bring to this, and a little bit of pep talk to keep going. We will see the end. And I'm already, as I'm talking to folks out there, I am starting to hear, like people are, yes, still scared and still thinking about this as, a major challenge that's requiring a lot of focus. But I am starting to hear people um, feeling a little bit more positive, starting to feel like they can take a breath, starting to feel like they can, see the other side. So it's definitely coming. And so if you have, you know, gotten the business solid, you've built that surfboard, gotten everything strong. Now's the perfect time to just steal a little bit of time with your team, or with your agency, or whoever your support system is, and really be thinking about, how do we prepare for what's next, and not just how do we do things in the midst of all this, but how do we start to pick our heads up a little bit, look down the field and see what's coming, and make some decisions appropriately. So, well, thank you guys for finding us. Um, and sorry about the early technical difficulties, but hope everybody's doing great, and we will get through this. And if you have specific questions that you need answered, definitely feel free to shoot me an email or be in touch, and I'm happy to do whatever I can to support. So, all right, we are all in this together. All right. Take care and have a great day.